In this Director's Monthly Update, I'm going to talk about some of the issues that surfaced during the National HR and Hospitality Conference I attended last week. That conference is actually organized by Rick Hurd and I at ILR and David Sherwin and Bruce Tracy. In addition, we get advice from a number of practitioners in the hospitality sector. This is our 15th annual version of the conference. This particular conference got delayed from its original date. It was going to be held in spring 2020, but due to the pandemic, and it was at the Lowe's Hotel in South Beach, Miami. In any case, there were two sessions that I think you would find of interest. One addressed the collective bargaining that's currently occurring in the hospitality sector, and the other address the use of and design of employment arbitration. First, on bargaining, this period is actually in the midst of a bargaining round in which negotiations are taking place between Unite Here, the union that represents a significant number of hospitality employees, particularly in certain cities, New York, San Francisco, for example, Chicago, in Hawaii and elsewhere. Those negotiations are occurring with particular hotel companies, the large chains. There's a separate agreement with Marriott, another agreement with Hilton, one with Hyatt. So, what did we learn in this session from a number of the key bargainers who participated in the panel we had? We learned that bargaining occurs in a decentralized fashion in this industry, in that there are agreements set for particular chains, let's say Marriott in Boston, as well as separate agreements in other hotel chains in other cities. The reality is, in addition to being decentralized, there is a very uneven unionization across the country in some of the central cities, which I've mentioned. Unite Here has significant representation, particularly among housekeepers, but also banquet servers and staff that check you in at the hotels. But they don't have representation in a number of other parts of the country. And so that's an issue that comes up in bargaining, right? The unions do better, have more strength when they have more extensive coverage of a sector or an industry. One of the key issues they talked about that's surfacing in this round is the workload of housekeepers. How many rooms should a housekeeper be required to clean as part of their job responsibility? That's an issue because during the pandemic, and it started even before that, some of the hotels are moving towards systems in which guests are given the option of not having their room cleaned every day. That, of course, reduces the demand for housekeepers. There's also some issue associated with new technology, whether to have kind of robotic like vacuum cleaners doing some of the cleaning. In addition, the union faces pressure because even in the cities where they have significant collective bargaining coverage, there's a growing non-union sector, particularly among mid-service level hotels. That's true in New York, for example. And then there's also, of course, another pressure on the union in the potential form of outsourcing. The hotel companies are considering, and in some cases, making use of contractors to do the work that full-time regular housekeepers used to do. So those are some of the issues surfacing. The parties are in the midst of bargaining, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out, especially in this period when we're recovering from the pandemic, but we also face a strong labor market, particularly in certain markets in the hospitality sector. But that, again, is also uneven. We were told the New York and San Francisco markets are lagging some of the other markets around the country. Anyway, let me move on. The other panel I participated in that I thought you would find of interest dealt with employment arbitration. And we have a panel in this kind of conference on that topic because employment arbitration is used fairly significantly in the hospitality sector. And of course, there's wide controversy surrounding the use of employment arbitration. Some, including the dean of the ILR School, Alex Colvin, who's really a leader in studying the use of employment arbitration, have been sharp critics of employment arbitration, saying it's inappropriate for employees to be forced into these procedures because many of the procedures are mandatory. They're structured by the companies. Alex and a number of his students, including Markov, have produced research evidence suggesting that biases the procedure in favor of management, that appropriate due process protections are not provided in procedures that are mandated and are shaped by management. Others argue that employment arbitration is an effective way to address problems. It's quicker, it's more direct, it solves problems closer to the source, uh, and they dispute some of the evidence regarding the biases in the procedure. In any case, we had a really healthy discussion during this session, and one thing that came out, which I find quite interesting, is in parts of the hospitality sector, for example, at Four Seasons, they shifted to having a voluntary employment arbitration system in which employees are given the option to use employment arbitration, and if they so choose to do so, in exchange, they get a just cause protection. The employment at will that the management would normally have is is eliminated. And we were told by Paul Wagner, who does a lot of legal work for Four Seasons and a number of other chains, that the evidence is a very substantial number of employees are choosing to use employment arbitration rather than go through potential court litigation to resolve complaints and problems. And that's also just sort of noteworthy that to be thrown into the mix regarding the discussions regarding employment arbitration. It's interesting to see what's happening in these kind of showcase examples where management, again, has moved away from the mandatory form and offering employment arbitration in exchange for some sort of just cause protection. So, in any case, I wanted to bring that to your attention. We, of course, are already begun planning for our next Cornell HR and Hospitality Conference to be held in 2023 during the spring. We haven't yet finalized the location, but you'll see advertising and posting about that conference, and you're, of course, welcome to attend. And we're always looking for expert speakers to add to our portfolio of speakers who help us address the issues at these conferences. So take care, and I hope you're able to keep safe and join in the recovery from the pandemic that we're all experiencing. Thank you.